Hello, welcome to another episode of History in the Dark. I am your host, Darkness the Curse, and before we begin, as always, thank you so much to my generous patrons, my British rail critics, and of course my underwater train finders. You are the reason why this content remains in the world of tomorrow!
Why do you always have to say it that way? Haven't you ever heard of a little thing called showmanship?
And today, we're going to talk about aircraft. But this time we're going to focus on aircraft of the future. Some are still in their concept form, but I still think they're worth talking about. These are 5 aircraft of the future. The Mitsubishi FX and the BAE Systems Tempest. Now, already I'm going to get people in the comments, actually, Darkness, if you're putting 2 aircraft in one entry, that means this is a top 6 list? And Look. Shut up, okay? Just roll with it. The 6th generation fighters all have one thing in common, is that none of them actually exist just yet. They're not actually things right now. They're being worked on to succeed the current Gen 5, but so far none of them have actually taken to the skies, as far as we know. Anyway, in terms of the FX, well, this is in development for the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force. And it's pretty interesting to see Japan go into something this ambitious on their own. For the last few decades since the end of World War II, most of what they've done when it comes to their defense industry is, frankly, buy stuff from us. The FX, for example, is supposed to replace the Mitsubishi F2. The F2 does have the Mitsubishi name and is called the F2, but that's, okay, look, that's an F-16. We know it's an F-16, and yes, it's heavily derived from the F-16. Though admittedly, Mitsubishi did manufacture the F-2, and it does have some notable differences. But the FX is a lot more ambitious. It's hard to say exactly what capabilities it's going to have, but it is derived from a lot of the tech that's been developed in the United States when it comes to Gen 5. Japan is going into this pretty hard for a handful of reasons. Economic ones to start. Their defense industry, which is a thing, and it does generate money, hasn't really been that profitable in a long time. They want to fix that. But also there's political reasons. They're a lot closer to both Russia and China. Russia and China have a lot of pretty impressive aircraft. And China's been going pretty hard into military investment lately. It concerns Japan because, they're small and they're right there. They don't need this kind of problem. They need something to defend themselves, and they can't always depend on buying stuff from us. You sure you don't want to buy anything? They already bought some F-35s. More on that later. The end result is supposed to have the electronic capability of the F-35, but an airframe more similar to an F-22, except larger, leading to an unofficial nickname from observers referring to the potential aircraft as Godzilla, which is amazing. I wish that was the official name. It probably won't be, but that would be awesome. Looking at it, it definitely looks futuristic, and very cool if I must say so myself. Wait, isn't that the Wyvern from Ace Combat? Hold on a second, there's something funny going on with Ace Combat. I demand an explanation. It's a conspiracy! As for the Tempest, developed by BAE Systems in the United Kingdom for the Royal Air Force, this plane is designed to augment and possibly replace the current Eurofighter Typhoon they've been using. The Typhoons are very impressive, but they're actually, technically, only Gen 4s. Well, 4.5, so they're up there, but still. So it seems reasonable that the UK would want to upgrade a bit and do it on their own. They've already bought some F-35s, because of course they have. Again, more on that later. But the Tempest is supposed to be something beyond that, a Gen 6. The Tempest actually has a mock-up that was displayed in 2019, but again, as far as anybody knows, it hasn't actually flown. Both aircraft are developed with the idea of them controlling their own little drone, so then a lot of Gen 6 fighters are looking into. Instead of having drones go on their own, every single jet of the future seems to be going about the idea that they'll all just be mini arsenal birds, with even smaller drone aircraft around them, that'll be controlled by a manned fighter, presumably with AI assistance. And the Gen 6s are also being designed with the idea that they could be flown unmanned if necessary, but no one wants to commit completely to that idea, because frankly, I don't agree with it. I think that these planes should be controlled by a person, or at least have the option to be able to be. There's only so much AI technology can do. Look, I have trouble getting Siri to shuffle my songs on Spotify. I don't need her at the helm of the trigger for some Sidewinder missiles. It just seems like a questionable idea. Without some level of human intervention still being there, plus drones, to me, are just a little bit boring. Like, yeah, you can make a drone go super fast, not have to worry about G-forces, the tech is really cool, I get that, but it's not as cool as a person being in control of it, being in the plane, being able to go that fast, that high, be invisible. It's just one of those deals with me. Anyway, the Tempest I'm worried about, to be honest. Japan's pretty committed because of their unique geographical situation as well as economic reasons, but the UK is a lot less at risk due to their location, and the UK financially isn't as willing to commit to something like this. There's been a lot of questions about the project, and whether or not funding it is really worth it. In fact, well, actually, it may not be. Neither will the FX, at least neither one will be in their own forms. There is another reason I put them in the same category. There was an announcement just last month, December of 2022, for the Global Combat Air Program. This is a multinational initiative led by the UK, Japan, and Italy, who was also working on the Gen 6 project, to combine their efforts and finances to create a 6th generation fighter. So it's possible that both the Tempest and the FX are going to wind up being the same thing. Sweden has also joined the project's efforts, which is very interesting because Sweden has some great jets under their belt. Both these planes may not appear in the forms I'm showing you now. They may not be two separate things. Maybe one even better thing. The Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II. Now, how in the world can I talk about future aircraft if I didn't bring up the F-35 Lightning II? I mean, it was developed to be kind of the apex of Generation 5. It's true, it's not as advanced as what Generation 6 will probably be in the end, but the F-35 is here to stay, and will be here for a while. It first flew in 2006, and it descends from the Lockheed Martin X-35, which beat out the Boeing X-32 to win the Joint Strike Fighter program. The JSF was meant as a way to kind of standardize American fighters across all the services. The F-35 was designed to be used by the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marine Corps. Prior to that, while the Navy and the Marines usually shared a lot of the aircraft they used, the Air Force was in their own little world, and cross-compatibility was always an issue. The F-35, ironically, was meant to standardize things a bit more, even across service lines, and therefore lower operating costs, which is hilarious, because the F-35 is one of the most legendarily expensive airplanes that has ever been developed. It was delayed several times because one of the flaws that was pointed out earlier with the X-35, when compared to the X-32, was that the X-35 was, shall we say, complicated. Very complicated. It had a lot of moving parts, and it was very easy for something to go wrong and screw everything else up. As a result, development took a long time to get it actually working the way it's supposed to be. This thing isn't supposed to just be a fighter. It's a VTOL aircraft, something the Navy and the Marines definitely wanted. Developing this thing cost the United States so much money. I don't even know where to begin. Like, a lot of money, okay? It was very expensive. But another key element of the program was that the F-35 was specifically designed to be exported. We wanted the ability to sell them to other countries. Because a big thing for us in the US is being that shady character in the alleyway. Except our trench coat isn't full of illicit narcotics. It's full of weapons. We love doing that. That's like 90% of what we do. The F-35 was meant for export because Congress refused to export the F-22, which some people argue may be more capable than the 35, and in terms of raw performance that may be somewhat true. The 35 was designed to be sold, and therefore despite being expensive to build, well, we sell it, so maybe we can make some money back. Because no one's allowed to have our 22s. They're ours, you hear me? They're ours! No one else's! Our precious! Now that it's actually somewhat working, the 35 has been sold to actually many nations. Despite earlier reservations about it, as some people said that the 35s weren't that good. It's true, they had a lot of growing pains. Development on them was a complete nightmare. But when they're working, and they're working good. Nations that have already bought them include Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Israel, Italy, Japan, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, South Korea, Singapore, Switzerland, the UK, and of course, us. Of course we bought our own plane. We're not buying yours. Unless they're Harriers, we did buy some of those. The F-35 is here to stay for a good long while, thus making the incredible, outrageous cost of developing it seem at least a little bit worth it in the end. And it's hard to argue with its capabilities. It is stealthy, it is VTOL, it does have integration with modern electronic systems. While it was expensive, it does seem to have delivered on all its promises. And they're supposed to be in the air until at least 2070. So you better get used to seeing them. And after all, until Gen 6 gets here, it's not like there's anything in Gen 5 that can compete with it. The 22s are unfortunately probably going away in the next 10 years, after they're replaced by a Generation 6 fighter they're working on. So in the future, I mean, what could rival the 35, and why do I hear Latin music? The Sukhoi Su-57. Oh my goodness. If you're looking for a boss battle in the sky, welcome to the world of Russia and Sukhoi. I don't know what Sukhoi's deal is. They are out of control. They always have been. It is the final product of the PACFA program. It's got super maneuverability, super cruise, integrated avionics, and substantial internal payload capacity. Oh yeah, it's stealth capable too, because of course it is. It's marketed for export, but so far none have been exported for reasons I'll get to. If this thing doesn't represent the pinnacle of Gen 5 fighter technology when it comes to Russia, I don't know what does. It's believed to be an incredible piece of aviation technology. It may be one of the most maneuverable Gen 5 fighters out there. And in terms of a one-to-one comparison, it's hard to say whether the F-35 could compete with this thing. Mother, help! Don't you speak to me or my daughter ever again! Could the 22 compete with it? Maybe. That comparison is pretty legendarily argued online. And I'm not really going to get into the details because it's hard to say. The Su-57 is definitely newer than the 22, but the 22's been receiving updates, and their airframes aren't that dissimilar. Which means it's likely, and I'm going to say this, I can't prove it, but I can almost guarantee that Sukhoi looked at the 22 and tried to improve on that design. It's not unusual for government military programs to do that exact thing. Everyone's cheating off each other. It's just the way it is. I mean, look at the other one they're working on, the Checkmate. Looks like the F-35. Of course they're doing that. But the 57 seems to be in a league all its own. And I have received comments from people arguing that it's really nothing special, and that Russian material grades are too low for it to perform well, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Look, here's my thing. Given the current international relations issue with Russia, which is rather poor, I'm just going to stress that when it comes to warfare, only a fool chooses to underestimate their opponent. It's a much safer assumption to assume the Su-57 is really that good, and be wrong about it later. I mean, maybe it turns out poorly. We don't really know. Because much like the F-22, the Russians really haven't used it that much. It has been deployed over Syria in the past, and it was said to have fulfilled all tasks. And as for the current Russian invasion of Ukraine, well, it took them a while to actually use them, for reasons I'm about to get to, because they have one main weakness, I think. And they do seem to be using them now, but only in Russian airspace, as they are terrified of having any combat losses of this particular plane. The reason? Well, for one thing, much like any Generation 5 fighter, they are violently expensive. Because of course they are. That's normal. But the other issue is that they really don't have that many of them. They have 11. 11 of the things! That's it! Some people say it's 21, but 10 of them were produced only for testing. The combat serial productions consists of 11 total planes. That's, well, I would be afraid to lose them too, especially given all the sanctions on Russia. Procuring the materials they need to actually build them anymore does put them in a pretty bad spot, and seeing one in combat and facing off with it in a dogfight situation would be extremely rare, if not nearly impossible. I mean, there aren't even that many F-22s, but there are at least 187 operational ones, not to mention the over 890 F-35s that have been produced. At the end of the day, the biggest flaw with the Su-57 seems to be its numbers. Because look, guys, Ace Combat lied to us. You can't win a war with one good plane and one ace pilot. That is not how you win wars. But that doesn't mean the 57 is any less impressive for what it is. And it seems like even NATO takes it pretty seriously. You know what its reporting name is? Felon. It's actually almost a compliment in this context. The Northrop Grumman B-21 Raider. Okay, I'm gonna warn you, there isn't much to go on with this one either, but at least we know it physically exists. This was a very recent reveal by Northrop Grumman. It's their latest bomber made for the United States Air Force. Looking at it, you might think, isn't that a B-2? No, I'd almost call it the daughter of the B-2. The 21 is obviously deriving and improving on the B-2's stealth technology. It has the same flying wing style, but it seems to be a lot more narrow. A lot of aspects of this thing are highly classified, because of course they are. So exact specifications like speed, its enabling systems, anything like that, are still considered top secret, though some elements are known, such as what exactly it looks like. The 21 is meant to replace the Rockwell B-1 Lancer, and eventually the B-2 itself by 2040. It may even replace the B-52 Stratofortress after a while, though that one probably won't go away anytime soon. The B-52 will never die, okay? It just won't. The 21 was designed to be cheaper than the B-2, yet still have similar, if not better, capabilities. And by cheaper, I mean it's still going to be violently expensive, but not nearly as outrageous as the B-2s tend to be. The cost of each individual unit of B-21 is estimated to be about $700 million, so it's going to be at least $1 billion. That's a lie. There's no way it's going to be that cheap. It never is. It never is, okay? It never is. It's at least $1 billion. But that still will be pretty good for the kind of tech we're talking about here. As for its actual performance, well, again, there's only so much I can tell you. We just don't know yet. We haven't even seen it fly, technically. We've just seen what it looks like, which I can live with. That's pretty normal for these types of things. As for the name Raider, that's actually one of the coolest things about it, I think. It's a throwback to the Doolittle Raiders from the very beginning of America's involvement in World War II. I'll add a card for my video about that, because that's a long story and a crazy one. It's nice they're being honored in a production plane, though. It's hard to say what the future holds for the 21, again, without seeing it actually fly and how it performs, but it's Northrop Grumman, and they made the B-2, and the B-2 is amazing. I have confidence in them, let's put it that way. The Bell 360 Invictus. I'm aware this is the only reason why I had to title this video Aircraft and not Plane, because it's a helicopter. But I could not talk about it. Because look at it. Just look at this thing. It's beautiful. You might think I'm getting very superficial on you, and looking at this thing without knowing its capabilities, or even if it's going to win the competition it's in, you're right. I don't know any of that, but look at this thing. If it doesn't win, I'm going to cry. Literally, I will be sobbing. I'll let you know if that happens. I may have to take a break for a week to mourn its loss. Many publications have pointed out its similarities to the Boeing Sikorsky RAH-66 Comanche, which I have gone on record as saying is my favorite helicopter ever, and it never got a chance because they canceled it because it was too expensive. And you cowards, you have the money. How dare you? How dare you ruin my fun? How dare you disappoint me like that? But don't worry, Bell's here to fix everything. Because it just looks like it. It's bigger and has some differences, but the overall design is very, very, very reminiscent of the Comanche. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but the final result has me legitimately impressed. The design was actually unveiled the 1st of October 2019, and though it hasn't actually flown yet, Bell promises it is going to be able to hit every single requirement that the Army has. The competition seems to be putting it against a lot more, interesting looking Raider X. Equally awesome name, but I just can't get over this weird design. It's got coaxial rigid rotors and a pusher propeller. It just looks so weird to me. I never could get behind this kind of design myself. Again, I'm speaking from superficial perspectives here. It's possible that the Raider X may win the competition and I might have to live with it, but I still love the Invictus and I always will. It is just, look, let me play Urban Strike music over it. You'll see what I mean. A special thank you goes to all my underwater train finders. Thomas Ward, Some Dude 267, Orange Glass, Royal Hudson 2860, Lord Hawk 444, Benjamin Owens, Panzer Considered 131-232, Mr. Black Rose, Master of None, Josh Johnson, No for Life Guy, Matthew Gavin, Arthur Roy, DM Trouble Typhoon, Tommy Rossini, Lord Captain Von Thrust III, Joshua Long, Alaric Jaspers, Brian, Jack Carson's Railroad Videos, Major Klutz, Hayden DeGrow, Ohio Trucker 1, and Ty Hammonds Jr. Until next time, this is Darkness, Big Roll of Fawn, farewell.